Okay, hey guys, Sam back with you here on Monday, October 29th. And next up, buy requests from our members is a look at EOS to the dollar. Now, again, we've looked at this recently, so not a lot of change here, but just maybe a couple of different ways that we might approach what we're seeing down here as we're essentially ranging and going sideways, now drooping a little lower. So I'm just working with a couple of ranges here. So this was very nicely established. Now we got through it, and then you could do the same thing here. And these are, in effect, this is a trend line here that's now had 3 taps and is being broken. This is not unlike what we just went through in Ripple. So let's just zoom in here a little bit closer. We'll focus on this last move down here. Let me pop this up here. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just working from this last swing. Defining, I've got a channel on that, and then we've got this nicely established channel coming up that has just broken. Well, so I have a couple of thoughts here. So one, also like Ripple, look at the Vegas wave, we're going sideways, right? So we have absolutely no trend. So can we range the market? Well, let's see a couple of things here. So do I have wolf range on here? Yeah, I do. So I would take out my wolf range here, and I'd work from this pivot here. If we just go swing high to swing low and check for the 50, well, that's kind of interesting. And so look at this nice confluence here, where we get the channel and the 50, and that it sort of is all defined here. Now we could have made the case that we were defining the channel off of this pivot to this pivot, and it's not coincidental that we get the reaction here, and that's swing high, swing low to a 50. So a lot of technical confluence right there. You're also at prior, you can think of it this way, right? You just say here, well, look at this little range I have here of prior support now becoming the resistance. Pretty standard ops there, right? So we have this confluence zone here. So it looks like I've got a good range here of the market. I haven't gotten out of that range here. I'm just sitting between the 50 and the 100. Now I could do the same thing here. So let me zoom this. I want to get this up a little bit. Okay, so since I'm just sort of stuck here, and the only thing that's happened now is that I've broken the lower channel, I would do the same thing as I was showing you before. I would clone this, and I would take it down 50% at a time. So if I just go right to the center line, put it on top, right? So you see what I'm doing? It's just like the wolf range, right? So we're changing the range. We're just doing it on an angle. So here's my important pivot down here. Here's my 50, and now this becomes an area of interest here. So if we're going to hit the low end of the range down here as we come into the expansion of that channel, this is an area that would get my interest. Now we would effectively be putting in a double bottom, but note we have the upper sloping of the channel that we clone. So we have potential as we've gotten past this one. Now you could, of course, just do the same thing here. We could clone this. If I clone that and then do the same thing looking up here, taking this, and I'm looking for confluence zones, right? So interesting, right? What we get here. So this didn't quite get there, but these are areas where I would be looking for confluence or some sort of reaction, right? So with this break, would not be uncommon at all if we're going to break down here with some significance to come back and test that channel before we go back down. Then obviously we'll test here. If we break that, then we're going lower. Right now, that break here, look how many times that's been tested. 1, 2, 3, we test and we break. So often, right now, granted, I am on a 4-hour chart here, so often there'll be a little revisit to that trend line here. It's often called the kiss goodbye, so we tap it one more time before we head lower. But this is reasonable support down here where we'd be looking for a reaction. So this is the area I'd be looking for. There's not much else to do, really. I mean, you got a count that's helping you there? I mean, we can get a count on it, but it's really not helping me until we get some move. We need a tell. We need a directional bias here to resolve here. So maybe this 50 here, we know we'd have targets down below if we're going to go, right? We know that, right? So swing high, swing low. Here's our 50. We're going to have the negative 23.6, or if you could do it with GAN tools as well, and we know that these are going to be very close. So if I just do it that way and put the expansion box here, well, these are likely pivots, but here, no, this would be a double bottom, obviously, right? So this would be next area that we'd be looking for would be down here, right? If we're going to get to target. So that would be our an algo target, it will be right on top of the negative 23.6. It's the 0.25. So this would be the next target here from that 50. Right, if we're going to break that. So that kind of gives you some, I know my members are bullish, right? It's just, there's not a lot for bulls to grab onto here. Well, it's not there, right? Sorry guys, there's just no reason to be a buyer there. Now maybe down here, I'd like it better down here. All right, so that's going down to $3. That looks more interesting to me if we're going to come down to $3. Now, if we start to crank and we break through some of these things, I'd be the first guy in line to say, okay, here we go. But right now, that just looks like lower prices are likely. All right, so with that, not much more I can add to it. All right, so I can give you some targets down here. Show you a different way to maybe range the market, but that would be a negative. That was a negative for bulls. All right, so we'll have to wait and see, get this to develop a little bit more, and looks like we'll likely be watching this closely over the next week or so. All right, guys, back to you later.